Hello and welcome. Since this show is all about books, I just want to take a moment before we join this week's guest to share a discovery with you. If you struggle with making important decisions, I can heartily recommend a really inspiring book called The Necktie and the Jaguar by retired clinical psychologist, Jungian and analyst and shamanic practitioner Carl Greer. In addition to revealing how he tapped into the wisdom and the power of unseen worlds for guidance and inspiration, this fascinating memoir offers some valuable keys and questions that inspire the kind of thinking that guides you effortlessly on your own path to transformation. If you want to know more, visit carlgreer.com, CARLGREER. And now with me today to share the stories behind the 10 books that influenced him the most on his life journey is mystic, author, musician, producer, spiritual teacher, and founder and host of Centre of Light Radio, Keith Anthony Blanchard. Keith Blanchard is the founder and host for Centre of Light Radio, whose listening audience has reached 4 million plus people. He's the author of several books, including his original bestseller, The Divine Principle, Anchoring Heaven on Earth, and also For the Love of God, A Spiritual Journey, and a children's book series named after his son, Eden Sky Wonders Why. And he's also got a new book out called Homecoming, Crossing the Bridge to the Soul. And Keith has also produced 2 films, Do What You Love and The Meek Shall Inherit the Earth. We'll get to talk about those a little bit later in the show. For now, Keith Blanchard, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, Keith, you said that you regard books as portals to other worlds, stargates that allow a person to pass through a myriad of perspectives. Tell me more.
Sort of like the cosmic womb, a return to your mother, where all wisdom and divine information is stored. Can be a vacation. Books can take you away from the world for a while. It can take you deep within yourself to reality forever. So books is, for me, have always been a gateway to simply finding a greater possibility of myself. That's for sure.
Yeah. So what was it like for you, clearly as a book lover, to colour your list of books down to just 10?
I think there was probably only 10 books that really moved me. A lot of books moved me, but there were 10 that were the staples. Now, if I was to try to call them up, I'd have to go back into a thinking process of what those were. I'm sure you might have the list.
Oh, I've got the list.
Make no mistake about it, Mr. Blanchard. I got the list. Wayne Dyer put me on my knees many times. Deepak Chopra.
You're getting ahead of me now.
Sorry.
I want to go through your list in the order that you gave it to me, which I do not think is a chronological order. I don't think it's the order that you read them. But I mean, every book on your list is a book that I heartily approve of. I can definitely say that. Some really good classics there. And maybe a few too that other people, some are very well known and some maybe not quite so well known. But let's start by talking about the first book on your list, which has appeared again and again and again throughout the almost 2 years that we've been doing this show, which is You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. When did that book come into your life and how did it impact you?
It came into my life at the right time. And it's changed me from soul to bones. That was the first book I read when I started this conscious walk. It helped me to understand and to align that anything is possible, how powerful I am, how powerful we are. That book gave me power. It put the keys of power in my hand so I can start the ignition of my spiritual Ferrari. That book changed me from inside out. And I love the fact that it was blocks and then it would pause and then it was blocks, because I felt that if I wanted to stop, there was no effort in feeling complete with what I read, so I can go about my day or come back to a fresh new start. I loved the affirmations list in there. The whole package of the front cover to the back cover of that book was my saving grace, really.
So when was it that it came into your life? You say it was the first one that you really took note of.
92, 93. It's
Mm.
been so many years. That's my best round off.
Okay. Second book is The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, which was published in 93.
I loved it. The Celestine Prophecy. It reminded me of something I've always known, the end times, or the beginning, if you will, and how the movement of energy transpires with each and every person. I liked the landscape layout that James Redfield created in this very image depicting book. I loved the movie, though I thought the movie wasn't as good as the book, but it was a fun ride. The Celestine Prophecy again leaned me into. Actually, it was my christening into beginning to play with energy and seeing what energy actually is and what it could do. It helped you understand the movement of energy, rather.
Was it a revelation to you?
All 10 books.
Oh,
But
10
yes,
books.
that book was definitely a revelation for me. I was excited the more I continue to read these books, the more my tail, like a little puppy dog in the window about to be bought, would start to wag. I would just get so on fire by reading this stuff that just really fed me
Mm.
spoonfuls of power and love.
Well, I'm glad you used that word fed and spoonfuls as well, because I noticed there's a thread running through your list that these analogies of food come into it. You said about the Celestine Prophecy, digging through this spiritual pantry, I found great sustenance as I
Oh,
scarfed
wow.
it all up,
I love
swallowing
that.
words by the mindful, and then digesting what it fed me to live a balanced life. I was full for quite a long time after this read. So it's a real gustatory experience for you, Reed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I've not come across anybody who uses, all of these incredibly, words to do with food and the senses so well as you did with that. So after that, actually, I think we've skipped one. I have skipped one on your list. A favourite of mine, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, a book that changes lives by Dan Millman. Now, that is one of my favourites. So,
Wow. 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 You're just bringing all kind of joy into my face, into my heart. I loved that movie. Nick Nolte was fantastic as Socrates.
Socrates, yeah.
That book, wow. And the book that I know it's not on the list. I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but the one that followed, Sacred Path of the Peaceful Warrior, that
Yeah.
book cover, I really wanted to get that book cover tattooed on my arm. This is how much it moved me. Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I felt I was the gymnast learning from the mentor. I truly was Dan Millman in
Yeah.
that role. I,
Yeah.
I could picture walking in North California, North California at night. He had the bad dream down this dark road, and I'm the one that came upon the gas station with the old man leaning against the wall, and he says, "You're the old man in my dream," right? Yeah, I love that whole series. Wow,
What did you take from it?
Peaceful Warrior.
Mm.
That just that you can be a warrior, but when you're a peaceful warrior, you have more power. And I think at this stage of my reading journey, I begin to level out somewhat. Things began to get a little more smooth in my life being so rocky and so staccato and always having episodes of being grumpy and angry. And but this is when I think my wave actually started to smooth out. So thank you, Dan Millman.
What were you grumpy and angry about?
Just, without blaming anyone, just growing up the way I grew up, Catholic, Not that that's anything bad. It's how I took it in my life events. But if you ask the question honestly, what was I angry about? Not being heard, that I couldn't get what I wanted.
Mm.
I would think those two things would be the top of that list. That's for sure.
Yeah, because
But
you
then I
have said,
realized when I became a peaceful warrior, I can have everything, not just what I want, even the things I don't think that I want.
yeah, you said in your bio that you had a very challenging time in your 20s,
I
and that was
dated a
hard
girl
for
for 10
you.
years, yeah, and she left, and I touched the dark night of the soul, and I had nothing. I was a professional musician or aspiring to be, and she was the girlfriend. So the musicians lean on the girl pretty hard. She was my transportation, my food, my shelter, all my money, all of that. And when she
Mm.
said, "See you later," and then I went straight to the bottom. And then when I realized there's no further bottom, then I had the infinite potential of moving forever up. And after about 2 years of torturing myself, I started to give myself the grace that I needed.
And was that when you started coming across these books?
Yeah,
Yeah, and they
exactly.
helped you,
Yes,
obviously.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, number 4, Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, Richard Bach, another great classic, 1970.
If you want to enter into the arena of God, you don't play by the rules. You play by the laws. I've always said this in my presentations. Rules are great for those who need to be kept in line. But if we
Mm.
truly want to surpass and move into the realm of spiritual liberation, you don't play by the rules, you play by the laws. Because laws won't budge, they won't fudge for anyone. The
Mm.
rules can be broken and Jonathan Livingston Seagull, that book taught me that just don't say no, don't give up. Whatever it is you want, the fire in the belly is there. It's the power, it's the light source that, if I may, I always talk about. The fire in the heart is God, passion, power, will. When we move it through a clear mind, heaven on earth can become established. Well, in the fire belly of this little seagull, he had it in him, and he learned, integrated how to soar by folding and cupping his wings and getting greater degrees of speed. And yeah, it taught me to kick the walls down.
Mm. Yeah, you said that this was a time when the little things began to create great shifts, teaching you to tuck in your wings to gain speed as you began to level up. Powerful. Mm. Yeah. So, book number 5, I was surprised to see this. It's the first time he's turned up in 2 years, and that is Cryon. Don't Think Like a Human, Channeled Answers to Basic Questions by Lee Carroll. That was published in 1994.
Right.
I don't think that was Lee's first one. I'm not sure. I mean, he's published so many books, it's hard to, work out which came when, but it was one of his books that fell out and certainly started me on a very synchronous path. So tell us about how this one came to you and what it did for you.
A friend of mine by the name of Jeff, Keith, read this fantastic book. And I started reading the book. Quarter of the way through the book, my wife at the time walks into the room, and I'm full of snot, and my face is wet, and I'm crying all over the book. And my wife at the time says, "Keith, what's the matter? You okay?" I said, "Melanie, I've done this before." I was just so overwhelmed. This I'm referring to is the channeling. And shortly after that, 1996, I had a full-blown episode, being thrown into the light, an experience of the absolute. And it all started from there. But I knew this was coming on some level. I just wasn't ready or knew how soon it was going to happen. But I knew it was a part of me. It resounded inside of me. And somehow I just knew it. I don't know if it was a future sight or just a remembering, but it was definitely present for me.
Mm. And you started channeling after that. So do you
Yeah.
think that book triggered, opened, turned a key of some kind?
It was a heads up, whether you know it yet or not, Keith. This is coming. And in the Cryon book, I even did the asking for higher level spirit guides. Master guides is what he called it. I felt the whole experience. I went into a meditation. Don't remember what it was. I think you take an imaginary pill, you ask for higher guides. And he said, you will feel depression for 3 months. And I felt it. And then one day, I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm going about my day, and I hear, Keith, your gift has arrived. That's when I went into the meditation and took the pill. And I immediately became better, felt better. Um, yeah, that was definitely a big landmark book in my life, that's for sure.
Mm,
He's
yeah,
very good with the English language. I love it.
he is indeed. I think the first one I read was book 6, which I always say if I'd read book 1, I might not have gone any further, but book 6 had a lot of the letters from scientists confirming the things that Cryon had said before, and that got my attention.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So book number 6, Conversations with God, An Uncommon Dialogue by Neil Donald Walsh, published in 1995. Another game changer.
When I was thrown into that presence of the light in 1996, I just got back from playing music at a casino an hour away. 7 sets of music. It's a lot. I was tired. That relationship of 10 years that I was let go of, that put me in a dark night of the soul. Sometime after the relationship breakup, I went inside of myself. I was hurting. I need to hear your voice. I need to hear your voice. I had so much passion, sincerity, humility, and vulnerability. Somehow, I've unlocked the door to the universe. 3 weeks later, even though I said this prayer for 3 weeks, 3 weeks later, coming home from that casino, I went to sleep and I was awakened out of my sleep in the morning. Keith, wake up. It's time for you to wake up. Nobody's in the house. Dream voice. Go back to sleep. Keith, I asked you to awake. And the voice begins to speak. And I was thrown into the light. I smelled the voice, heard the voice, tasted the voice. I knew everything. And though the thoughts came to my mind linearly, all of this happened in whole thought. It took my fragmented mind to put all this together. The voice said, Keith, go on the sofa, bring your tape recorder, and press record. And what I'm going to talk about. Just do this, take a few breaths, relax. And then my mouth began to engage immediately. And I began to log this for a year and a half, and that became the bestseller, The Divine Principle. But once I started writing this book in 1996, someone hands me Conversations with God, and they say, Keith, look at the parallels between these two books. It was truly uncanny. Conversations with God, the first 3, were truly validation, a signpost saying, this way, keep going this way, which was the way I was going, doing the work that I was doing. So throughout all these books, I'm just being loved and supported by the universe and validated. So it was not really difficult for me to continue to pick up my gait, to change my fate. It changed me. I loved it.
Mm. How long, you said it took you, 18 months to write your book? And it was all channeled?
The Divine Principle, I channeled for about 18 months. Then Spirit said, that's enough of all that, Keith. Go live the practices. You're going to refine the book throughout the rest of the upcoming years, but go and live these teachings, because the last thing that we want is for you to recite the information just like a parrot. That's not necessary. Integrate this knowledge, and then you become the living word, if you will, of any writer. When you integrate your own work, it's not just work. It becomes your life walk, your mission. And so I began to integrate all this, but the whole process took about 8 years.
Wow. Who were you channeling?
At first, it was everybody. It was like a phone booth, and everybody's waiting in line. I'm like, la, 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 la. But I learned how to cut that off. I never really gave it a label. Sometimes the labels would come in. Often Mother Mary would come in, and sometimes Yeshua or whoever it would be. But when I put my foot down or opened my heart and asked such a way that I just want to hear the absolute consciousness of love and light that supports me to support everyone. And then I left it at that.
Okay, so the next book taught you how to not play by the rules to get what you want. Deepak Chopra, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, a practical guide to the fulfillment of your dreams.
I've always liked Deepak. Yeah, his books often reminded me of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, breaking through those walls, through those barriers of the mind, the unclear mind, the monkey mind. The monkey wants what it wants. And people say, you got to quieten the ego. You got to kill the ego. Go ahead and try it. Let me know if you have any luck. You step on the monkey's tail, he's gonna yammer. So you have to learn how to give him what he wants. He wants a spiritual banana. So you love your monkey, and because he can't talk anymore, he's got a banana in his mouth, and he suddenly begins to get quiet. And in such a way, I've learned to break through the barriers in my life. I'm very content, and that's on a bad day. On a good day, I'm just full of fire, and Deepak and other authors like him. Deepak, I just loved his work. I loved the fact that he came from a scientific background in his field of medicine, but he also came from the Indian field of medicine, spirituality. And I just felt that these two aspects of Deepak coming together was a bridge to crossing the soul for me.
My Baba and I by John Hislop is the next book. That was published in 1985. And you said this one was life-changing in every sense of the word.
I began to read books after I learned about the life of Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba on the planet. I began to read every book I could find about him. He doesn't write books. He's above writing books. And then he starts coming to me in dreams. Well, after about a year of that, taps me on my spiritual leg when I'm sleeping and brings me to full-blown awareness. And he's standing across the river about 200 feet, and he's talking to me telepathically. And I jump to the ground in this dream experience, and he says, Keith, stand up. I got something for you. I say, okay. He says, I want you to come to India to see me at my ashram. And I said, I would love to, but where will I get the money? How will I go? I've never done such a thing. He says, I got you covered. So I wake up in the morning sobbing in my hands that this was so hyper real. I think I'm going to go to India. And it all started with John Hislop's book. I think I'm going to go to India. And I let it go. And 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from a lady I never met. She said, hi, Keith. My name is Debbie Jabbour. We have a mutual friend, and word got to me. You want to go to India to see a holy man? I said, yes, ma'am. She says, Keith, I'm a flight attendant, and I have some companion passes for the year that are about to expire, and I would not like that to happen because you want to go to a spiritual ashram and have a beautiful experience. I hit the floor crying and snotting. And 3 months later, I'm in India and Sathya Sai Baba's ashram, experiencing a literal dream realize itself. Hislop was an honest, good man, genuine man. He had the ability of, you can't fool him. He can see. He's a soft, honest, down-to-earth kind of man. And his love for this avatar, Divine Descent, touched my heart. But he was the first book I read into the series of learning about Sathya Sai Baba, who was a guru I followed for many, many years. So much so I have it tattooed on my arm, Sai Baba on my arm. Either way, it's there.
Wayne Dyer, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. A book that's changed many people's lives.
That man, when he would do the PBS paid television network kinds of presentations, I would literally get off my sofa and fall to my knees. Wayne Dyer, probably one of the most likable human beings that's ever graced this planet. I loved his way. I was touched when he left the earth. That's for sure. Wayne Dyer, he came from a psychological background as a doctor of some sort, I believe. And then he changed that all turned it over in its hand inside out. And his publicist said, like, Wayne, are you sure you want to do this? And he said, oh, yeah, I'm sure. And I'm grateful he did. Wayne Dyer has a very special place in my heart. That's for sure.
In many people's hearts, for sure. Yeah. Well, your 10th book, to go back to the food analogies, you not only described as being so rich like cheesecake that after a few pages you had to put it down for another time. And that book is The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch by J.J. Hurtak.
So way early when I was still spiritually crawling, but I was wanting something. I put out a newsletter, handwritten, hand-typed, at all the local outlets. The library was one of them. And this old lady, 75, called me one day, said, young man, you and I need to have a talk. I said, sure. I said, she goes, you can come over and have lunch with me. I said, I would love that. Where do you live? She lived across the street. So I walk into her house. Oh, my dear Lord. She had all that brother of light, the B'nai Or energy everywhere. Oh, you can feel it. Like cheesecake. I couldn't stay long. It was so high vibrational. I felt informationally pregnant, and it began to hurt after a while. So after I befriended this lady, and I'd go off and have lunch with her, one day she calls me. She says, Keith, you need to come over. I have something for you. I said, okay, what is it? She goes, just watch this video of Dr. Hurtak, and you will know. So I'm watching the video. It's a 2-hour presentation he did somewhere back in the VHS videotape days. So I called Margaret. I said, Margaret, I've been watching this thing for an hour. She goes, just keep watching. And about 5 minutes later, Dr. Hurtak points to the screen and says, I'm now going to show you a slide of one of the brothers of light who are here on this planet today doing this work. And my God, it was my face. I didn't know what to do with that. I brought my wife into the situation. She didn't know what to do with that either. So that was the alignment we were talking about in the green room that transpired. And so I began to read more and more of Hurtak's work until there was no more reason for me to read it, because I started to integrate all those symbols of light. So there was no longer a need to read the book. But every once in a while, I'll go back and thumb through it. And again, like always, it's still the same cheesecake scenario. A few bites and I had enough.
So did you ever meet him?
I'm sorry?
Did you meet him?
No.
Have you, I mean, you've got a radio show. Have you interviewed any of your favorite authors?
You know, right when I was getting my radio groove and the numbers I needed to get the attention of some of these teachers, the radio station, Inception Radio Network, went dark. And so I had to start all over again, and I'm still working on building it up. But I have interviewed some quite a few big people. One of my favorites was Bishop John Shelby Spong. He was fantastic.
I don't know who that is.
He talks the Catholic current a lot. He was fun. But I have interviewed quite often this God-realized man from India, who I am a disciple of, Swamiji Viswayogi, who is incarnated on the earth today. And this is his 9th incarnation. He was the first realized soul to walk the earth ever. This man is full of divine fire. He's rubbed his hand on my spine, ignited my kundalini. He's opened me up, integrated into my life experience as a teacher. So when I do even though I do radio interviews with interview other teachers and experts in their field, I often do one-offs every night, almost every night for the last 7 years. I just find something happening in the stream. There's a lot of depression, and I just go at it. And I can feel this Swamiji energy begin to drape me. I may not feel like doing it tonight, but once I sit down, I can feel this energy shroud me and push me into this level of experience that is so blissful. I'm addicted to it. I'm a God junkie.
Well, it's not a bad thing to be addicted to, is it?
Right.
Well, that's your 10 books. What are you reading now?
I don't.
You don't.
Not that I don't need to or could use it. It's run its course for me. And I'll read a good article, I'll read something, but to sit down and read a book, I just don't. Just like when I play music, though I do it for a living, the last thing I want to do is pick up a guitar when I get home because I've been doing it all week. Um, I don't. I don't read anymore. But I love books. They were the stepping stone for me to be tall enough to get the food out of the pantry.
But you write books.
I do. I
So
love the act of writing.
tell us about your other books.
The Divine Principle was the first one we talked about, that it took 8 years and became my first bestseller. And I made two companion books, a workbook and a thought for the day book out of the Divine Principle. Then I began working on a children's book series, Eden Sky Wonders Why, which is the name of my son, Eden Sky, about a single dad who is raising his son, and his son is 6 years old, and he asks these big questions that most parents feel uncomfortable to ask. Dad, where do little children come from? Dad, why do little children get sick and die? Kinds of books. And then when I was going to India, that same tape recorder I used when I was recording the Divine Principle, I brought with me to India. When I wrote For the Love of God, A Spiritual Journey, I didn't write it from a hindsight perspective, like on January 2nd at 12:30, this event happened. I remember it so clearly. I actually wrote it in present tense so you could feel what is happening to me, getting the same bang that I'm getting, like, oh my God, Sai Baba's walking up to me. Darn it, he just passed by me. Or he's walking up to me and he just blessed his bead and it opened me up and I saw things beyond our physical eyes can see. That book took me 14 years, only because I wrote in it only just every so often.
Mm.
So these are my books, and then The Homecoming Crossing the Bridge is my newest release.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. The first book, was this when the extraterrestrials were also talking to you?
That started when I was about 8 years old. At least the conscious memory of what started when I was 8 and 9 years old happened when I was 33. When I was about 8 years old, raised Catholic, dogs, demons, boogeymen, pitch black backyard at 2 in the morning. No 8-year-old boy wants to be a part of that. But I would often find myself standing in the backyard. What am I doing here? I was never afraid. Never afraid. But being such a small stature of a person that I am, I found a cinder block that was tall, and I had to lean up against the house to be tall enough to lunge myself through my bedroom window to go back to bed. And this happened often, but at random. This happened, I would say, for about 2 years, give or take. Age of 33, I'm watching a program on the Discovery Channel about aliens, and it all just came flooding back. And that's when my conscious experience began to happen with divine men, Satya Sai Baba, archangels, Yeshua. But I do believe, no, I absolutely know that my earlier visits with these others, extraterrestrials, I was never violated, ever. Never taken beyond my will. My work with these beings, my time with these beings is because they were tuning up my system, manipulating my energetic system so that, and come being 33 years old in 1993, that I would begin to do the work that I am doing presently. Now it's happening not for tune-ups. I had a tune-up the other night, and I don't often name races of beings because they don't often give their name when they allow me to hang out with them in their ships or wherever it is we go. But the other night I had an experience with the group of beings called the Andromedans, and it started in this night's sleep. I come full blown aware, and I'm looking up and down out of the sky. Comes this yin yang dolphin spinning. And then I was put aboard the ship and I was greeted by the captain. His name was Captain Quiet, something, 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 something. And I say, what was that? He says, just call me Commander Quiet. And I said, I would like to see you again. He says, well, you have to get quiet to be able to do that. And so he actually waved his arms through my energy body. And it was somewhat uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie, but I knew it was purposeful. So it wasn't a violation. It was just, like, this has to happen if you want the benefits of it. But I experienced such experiences quite often, actually.
And these are, they're not in dreams. They're in
No,
wake time.
it's for me to fall asleep that gives me the opportunity to release my consciousness from my body because my mind is so occupied with the world. Me falling asleep is sort of like opening the door and say, okay, Keith, go out and play.
Okay, but it's completely lucid. You remember it all.
Mm,
Yeah,
completely lucid.
yeah. So tell me about your movies.
The first movie, Do What You Love, A Path to Passionate Living, a friend of mine by the name of Phil Galati, excuse me, came over one day. He says, Keith, being a spiritual teacher, I would like to get some thoughts on you about this path I want to take. I said, sure. He came over and he wanted to be an independent film producer. And he said, but. And I said, bro, do you want to be a film producer or not? You're giving me a bunch of excuses as to why you don't want to do this thing that you came all the way across town to tell me that you professed that you want to do. So he said, I think I'm going to do it. And he did it. And he became very successful at this craft. And as a way of saying thank you to me, he wanted to make a documentary movie about my life as a teacher and about how he used our time together to become a film producer. So it's called Do What You Love, A Path to Passionate Living. And you can find that on my website. But the second movie, And the Meek Shall Inherit the Earth, knowing who I am and the teacher that I am to do the work that I do, it's exactly what this movie is. I am here as a way shower, as a brother of light, to point the way, to empower people to take this opportunity, which is now. There is no more time, in fact, literal and figurative. There is no more time to empower people. And I woke up one morning about 6 years ago. I live my life in this computer chair in front of a TV screen with my computer. That's what I do. And I hear Keith write a book. I mean, write a movie, make a movie. Are you serious? So I got on Google Images and I started, and I used some excerpt from the Divine Principle. And I just knew this title was going to be And the Meek Shall Inherit the Earth, the prophecy realized. And I found images on Google and copyright free videos on YouTube. And I fashioned this movie about where we come from, where we are, and where we're going. It's one of the loves that I've created. It's a very powerful movie. It talks about everything that we can see from spirituality to science. Talks a lot about Albert Einstein's formula of E equals MC squared to a new formula that was given through a vesseling that I did, which is E equals MC pi over relativity pi over 4, which reveals that there is something faster than the speed of light, which is thought. And it shows that through this formula that light has no velocity whatsoever. It's literally everything that holds everything together.
So you said where we come from and where we're going. Tell me more about that. Where do we come from and where are we going?
Well, a lot of people speak about star seeds. That's never really my thing. But until the other night when I had the Arcturian experience, I get the starseed thing now. Everybody got it before me. That's fantastic. But I think calling ourselves a starseeds, I'm an Andromedan. I think that just really means you hung out on that planet or in that star system a whole heck of a lot. It's not really where we come from. Where we come from is the source of all things, God, heaven, if you will. So if we come from this place we call heaven and we're now on earth, we're already the embodiments of heaven on earth. It's truly about now doing the work to remove from the clear mind all that's been shrouding and clouding it. So we come from this place in the stars, if you will, how grandiose or majestic that would be. And we come here to live this little finite experience on the earth. And I think we have chosen to do that so we can move and wend our way towards the path of becoming the embodiments of that prophecy. And that's happening now.
Right now.
Right now. It's going down. And the window, at the same time, for those who are choosing it, is opening. And that very same window, for those who are not choosing, is closing.
You have a credo. You say, why choose to believe when you can know? Tell me more.
Everything to know is what is holding your bag of bones together. It's the chair you're sitting on. It's everything. This is not the mind, that's the brain. The body is the mind. And then we have the mental body, and then we have the spiritual body, we have the etheric body, and we have the bliss body, we have the causal body. So all of these bodies are tucked within other bodies, just like we are all individual bodies upon the planetary body, Mother Earth, Gaia, the celestial bodies. And we can keep playing this game to infinity, but ultimately it goes back to the causal body, the God body. And so when we turn inward, we move upward, and then we move forward toward something. And if you are one who is aligned with the divine will and that which has already happened, then we are granted these beautiful, graceful gifts. I call them gifts of fire, trial by fire, because we have to purify ourselves in such a way what we know as we has to die. It has to perish in the fires of purification. And those who are choosing that path will be purified. And along with that comes all the gifts of knowing. You know exactly what to do. Our level of intuition gets heightened. It expands. Awareness expands. The level of bliss we have in our physical body, because now we're joining with all the other bodies in the bliss body. So we're getting to this place to where reading books will always be a beautiful thing to do. You know, laying on a hammock and on a nice breezy day, glass of wine or whatever is your flavor, to let go. But we're coming to a time where information is simply we don't always trust that intuition, but it's the trusting and keep doing it that eventually blows the mud out of the garden hose, and then the water begins to run pure from the tap. So it's the trusting, even when you're not accurate, that will keep the engine greased and turning and moving. And next thing you know, your life outside will constantly remind you and validate that you are walking the path. And so this is my game. This is what I do, and I love it. And I love giving people that beautiful gift of power. This is the hour. That window is opening and closing at the same time.
Well, it's certainly very interesting that during this time of great challenge for everybody, so many people are, for the first time ever, learning about themselves. You know, they're having the opportunity to go within. They're having the opportunity to look at what they're doing and decide whether it is worth doing any longer in the way that they were doing it. Do you see... Sorry, carry on. I was going to say, do you see the... Yeah, do you see the pandemic as an incredibly positive experience that is giving people opportunities?
I see it as grace. A beautiful grace. It's sort of like a beautiful mess, chaotic order. And it's for those who want the order, line themselves with the order. So how do we see the order in the chaos? We have to step back and step back and step back, because the mind is going to want to tell you what it is. So you step back even further beyond the mind and watch the mind try to tell you what it is. Who is this person that stepped back so far that you can actually watch your own mind try to convince you of what the reality is? That is the being I'm interested in. That is the being that I am. That's the being we all are. And when we step back into that being, our seeing capacity is greater. COVID has brought me expansion. It's brought me awakening. It's brought me connection with people. It's brought me abundance. I have no complaints. Is it possible? Because I've unplugged from the nonsense of the world. Many people have unplugged from the nonsense of the world. So for me, I think God's grace is in everything. It's everything. You know, one may not see it while they're on the ground holding their pinky toe because they just hit it on the furniture. But in such realization, we realize that our spouse bought us a brand new piece of furniture that we've been asking for and wanted to surprise us. It just so happened the light was off. It was nighttime when we broke our toe. So grace is everywhere. It's all designed to lift you up. We have to go in, to go upward, to go forward, to go forward. Everything is designed to bring us home, coming, crossing the bridge to the soul. I see this time we're living in as infinite possibility.
And that is what the book is about.
It is. And strangely, through our separation during this time, we're actually unifying.
Yep, I can see that. So you've said that you feel like your mission is you're in pursuit of truth. Now, truth is a very subjective thing, and it's not something we can ever really prove. So how do you know when you've experienced truth?
That is a very delicious question, and I absolutely know the answer to what is the truth. If every being in the universe is seeking out bliss, synonymous with truth, then anything that brings you joy is truth. So everyone experiences joy is truth. So the barometer of truth is joy. Joy is evidence of the presence of God. So where we're not having good luck in our life, God is simply not being recognized. COVID, bad relationship, job, whatever it may be, or some of these things could be happening to bring you to greater degrees of joy and bliss. But the barometer for truth is joy. Joy is the evidence of truth. Individual joy, collective joy, world joy, bliss, ecstasy, whatever word we choose. But truth is a thread that wends its way through everything in existence. It's the foundation that holds everything, gives it the ability to erect itself as an expression of the divine. So joy is evidence of the presence of truth. So if heaven on earth, God on earth, the consciousness of God on earth, well, we can all bet it. The planet's going to be pretty doggone joyful.
I think that's probably a really good note to end it on. I mean, joy, isn't that something we all want?
Like cheesecake.
Like cheesecake, yeah. Something to be taken in small bites and savoured. Keith Blanchard, thank you for joining us today. Before we close, will you tell people where they can find you, your radio show, your books, etc.?
You can find me at keithanthonyblanchard.com or centeroflightradio.com, same website. You can find my presentations as well as my interviews there, but also on youtube.com/centeroflightradio. On Facebook, you could find me at Keith A. Blanchard on Facebook. I pour out my heart. People pour out theirs. And I just love being in that beautiful, magical space. I'm really about people. I love people. So come people.
And it would seem if you've got an audience of more than 4 million people, that at least 4 million people love you too.
Thank you. I really enjoyed my time with you. What a wonderful platform.
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. And we've enjoyed having you. So before we close, another important note. Given the disruption to Facebook last week, we've created a backup plan. If it happens again, and I would say it's bound to happen again, when we're live streaming an episode, we will move straight over to Zoom. Now, the only catch is you'll need a private link to join us there. And the only way to get that at short notice is to register by using our Save My Space form on our website's video page, where in about a week's time you will see this video posted, among many others. We don't spam you, we just keep you posted on our new monthly 10 Best List page updates and who's coming up next on our live video interviews. And obviously we send out last minute messages if anything goes wrong, like Facebook disappearing. So you can subscribe free at the NoBSSpiritualBookClub.com, and you can see lots of other videos in this series. People like Dan Millman, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., Lee Harris, Emmanuel Dagger, David G., Mark Nepo, David Primel, and Miten, and so many more. So do go over there, Sign that form, save my space, and you'll be able to watch all of these. Thank you for being with us today. We'll be back again next week at the same time with another episode of the No BS Spiritual Book Club's 10 Best Lists. Till then, it's goodbye from me.